We've all seen these weird black aerial roots protruding from our Monstera, haven't we? But what exactly are we supposed to do with these? Should we leave them to hang from the plant like this, ready for a monkey to come along and swing from plant to plant? Should we commit the ultimate sin and cut them off? Or should we do something like this to see if we can hack the plant's growth? There's tons of choices. We're going to go over what you should and shouldn't do with your aerial roots. Before we start deciding what to do with these, we first briefly need to understand what they are and why they exist. Monsteras start life at the bottom of the jungle on the forest floor, and it's their mission in life to climb higher and higher to reach the light that is blocked off by the surrounding trees. So how does it do this? Well, basically, it grows these long aerial roots from the stem of the plant, and it uses these to anchor itself onto the surrounding trees to then hoist itself higher up top of the canopy of the jungle. And it also uses these aerial roots to anchor itself into the ground to stop it from being uprooted and also falling over. So their primary function is for movement, to help them climb. But this doesn't mean they're not doing anything else. They're still capable of absorbing water and nutrients that will help them push out growth, usually from the bark of the trees that they're climbing up. They're not the primary way that the plant absorbs water and nutrients though. They're more of a secondary system. So if these get damaged or broken off the plant, then the plant will be fine. And that's because the primary root system is still in the ground, still intact. So now that we know this, we can start to decide what to do with these. You might have seen this hack doing the rounds on TikTok and such like, but if you haven't, then the trend that's been doing the rounds for the last couple of years is to take your aerial root still attached to the plant and then popping it into a vase of water like so. Popping the whole lot into a vase of water. Now, why are people doing this, and should you be doing the same? Well, supposedly, this is meant to act as a secondary water source for the plant, which it certainly does, because you've basically given your plant another point from which it can draw on water to help it grow. And if you add nutrients, maybe in the shape of houseplant hydroponic focus, you're also boosting its ability to take on more nutrients, which is no bad thing. So far so good, right? We should all be doing this, right? Well, not so much. The problem is, what happens long term? Doing this is like opening a can of Pringles. Once you start, you can't stop. This vase will need to be topped up with water and nutrients at all times. If you let it dry out, then this plant is going to be seriously unhappy. Plus, once the aerial roots get their lips around some water and nutrients, they grow absolutely rampant and they'll quickly outgrow the vase that you've given them. So not only do you have to provide water and nutrients, you also have to repot them. It's like growing a plant with two heads. Have you got a Monstera leaf that is coming out deformed like this, or any of them turning yellow? Are you pulling out your hair like me, not knowing why? Well, my free Plant Problems Troubleshooting Handbook will help, and you can get it with the link in the description. It covers all the symptoms of plant problems, why they happen, and then what to do about it, all in an easily digestible digital handbook. And it's free. As I mentioned earlier, these aerial roots are mainly there for the plant to climb, so why not give the plant something to climb up? And that's exactly what I've done for this Monstera here. I've got this trellis up against the backside of this Monstera, and I've tied it on with some Velcro tape so that the plant can use it as a support to start going taller and taller. But to be honest, I've kind of done this a little bit too late with this plant because it's already established. As you can tell with the extra long roots that it's grown. In an ideal world, you want to start this when the plant is quite small and quite young, so that it knows that the plank of wood is there and it can start using it to its advantage to climb up. And that's something you'll see with another method I'll show you in a bit. But a top tip for me is to grab your mister. This applies to if you've got your plant growing up any plank of wood, not just the trellis trellis. But just go through maybe 3 or 4 times a day and just moisten the wood. That will coax the aerial roots out of the plant and get it to start climbing onto the piece of wood. So I've got a 10% discount link that you can find in the description to this video if you're interested in getting these trellises. And I do really like them. Another hack that is not so involved is to grab a spray bottle like this and go through and mist the aerial roots of your Monstera or any other plant that has aerial roots. Just go through every now and then and missed it. But to be honest, it's not something I'm too much of a fan of. Like I said earlier, these aerial roots are capable of absorbing moisture and nutrients. So keeping the air around the aerial root nice and moist with nutrient-rich water should help the plant out, right? I'm not so sure. If you're a subscriber to the channel, then you'll know that misting doesn't really do too much to increase air humidity, not unless you've got a mister on 24/7, that is. Instead, humidity might increase for a few seconds, but it will return to normal once it dissipates. And there will be some moisture on the root, but that will soon dry too. So basically, there's better things we can be doing with this. I've propagated tons of monsteras over the years, and the aerial root can be a great starting point for cloning your plant. Make a cutting of a monstera, or any other plant with an aerial root for that matter, with the aerial roots still in play, and you're much more likely to have rooting success. The aerial root basically becomes the starting point for the new plant's root system, with secondary roots sprouting from the main one. The process is pretty simple, you don't need anything special. All you need to do is locate a node on the stem, and a node is just a point where the leaf comes out of the stem, and you make a cut underneath the node, and then you pop the stem piece with the aerial root in some water or perlite or even soil if you like, and then you've got a brand new plant for free. Something that I've got into in a big way this year is moss poles. Popping a moss pole behind a climbing plant encourages the aerial roots to grow into the moss, and the pole effectively becomes an extension of the pot. But why do we do this? Well, a climbing monstera is a happy monstera, and if the aerial roots can grow into the moss, then the plant is going to mature much quicker. And that means bigger leaves with lots of fenestrations. And that's exactly what I've done for this Monstera Thai constellation. I bought this guy from Amazon a few months ago, and I made a video about it, the unboxing video. And the first thing I did was to pop a moss pole up against its bum, and it's now growing its aerial roots into the moss, and the leaves are starting to size up. So this guy has been living on this moss pole for a fair few months now. It's very happy about it as well, pushing out lots of new growth with fenestrated leaves. But when you turn it around, and you can see the amount of roots that have grown into this moss pole, absolutely rampant. Like I say, when the aerial roots get their lips around some moisture and nutrients, they go absolutely wild. And it's best to do this as young as possible, as I have with this guy here. So this is one of the monsteras that I grew all the way from seed, and I made a video about it on the channel earlier in the year. So this guy, I popped a moss pole right up against his bum when he was still a youngling. So now the aerial roots will start growing into the moss. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses with these, because for these to work, you do have to keep them moist, which can be a bit of a pain in the bum. There's a few options. You can take it outside and hose it down with your spray gun, which is what I like to do sometimes. You can take it over to your sink and just douse the whole plant, including the moss pole, with nutrient-rich water. Or you can get a bottle like this. You'll have seen it on the internet probably. There's a hole in the cap, it's filled with nutrient-rich water, and then you can put it upside down like so for the water to slowly trickle through the moss pole. And as you can see, there's little air bubbles going up as the water trickles through nice and slowly. But when you've got lots of moss poles on the go, like I've got a few, it can become a bit tedious. If you like the propagation idea from earlier, but you're a bit worried that the cutting will die in your hands, then a safe bet would be to do something called air layering. Now, I've not done this yet, but Lee at Kill This Plant recently did an in-depth video on this that you should definitely check out. Basically, you wrap some moss around the node on the stem of the plant, including the aerial root, for the root starting magic to happen before you make the cut. Once there's a bunch of roots in the moss, you make the cut and boom, you've already got a rooted plant that just needs popping into a pot. Nice and simple. Sometimes we can't be bothered to set up moss poles, trellises and fancy hacks, can we? So the solution that I like to do most of the time is to take your aerial root and guide it into the soil of the plant. So this is a great thing to do for your monstera because it will help anchor the plant into the soil, and that will stabilise it just like it anchors itself in the floor of the jungle. And look at the tension in this aerial root here. This is helping stabilise the plant in this pot. So I wouldn't really bother doing it for an arrowroot that's as long as this, because it's going to be a real pain in the bum trying to get that into the pot of the plant. But if you have an arrowroot that is just starting to show itself and it's veering off course, like on this baby monstera here, there's already one growing in there. So what you can do is just try and direct it into the soil as best as you can, and that'll give it an extra avenue for the plant to absorb water and nutrients, which is no bad thing. And then the simplest solution is to just leave them be. Just let them go off on their own and discover the joys of your house. That's what's happening to this nice long arrowroot here. It's crawling along the floor in my bedroom, searching for God knows what. And I've also got these two guys here, crawling under my floorboards. I don't know what they think they're gonna find, but I think I might just try and yank these out and see how long they are. There you go. So they will go everywhere in your house if you leave them be, which is quite interesting, I think. Now, to be honest, I do quite like growing these as long as I can. I wonder how long this will grow before it becomes a trip hazard in my home. It's already quite a specimen, isn't it? So obviously, there's no water and nutrients that these are absorbing like this, but that's all right. The plant will be just fine. And then the absolute ultimate solution is probably the simplest and maybe the most satisfying too, and that is to grab your favourite pair of snippers, go in against the arrowroot and lob it off, just like so. Don't panic, this will not kill the plant, trust me, it will be fine. The arrowroots really aren't that important. They're a support department really, rather than critical infrastructure. Think of them as a nice to have rather than something essential. So if they're annoying you, then have no fear about lobbing them off. I've done it countless times to my plants and they always grow back. They always grow back. This video here tells you everything you need to know to grow the best monstera on the block, so make sure you click on it to watch it and I'll see you there.